This podcast is for entertainment purposes only and does not substitute for professional medical advice. Please seek a medical professional or healthcare provider if you're seeking any medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Thanks, everyone.
Hi.
Hi,
Patreon.
This episode is super cool.
I love this episode.
I knew that Julie would love this episode.
Yeah, I was so about it. I really kept the physics under control.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
This is a Patreon, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Episode 40.
Episode 40. 40.
Yeah. And I mean, don't worry. I kept the physics
Thank God.
toned down. Although, it's space medicine. It's all about fucking physics, but
I hate it.
Anyway, so here we go.
All right.
Space medicine.
Okay, guys.
And it was your idea.
I find the topic interesting. I just don't find the physics interesting. But anyways, okay, so what is space medicine?
Yeah.
So space medicine is a branch of medicine that specializes in medicine that focuses on health and well-being of the astronauts, okay, during their space flights.
Yeah.
Okay. So it deals with the unique challenges that arise from being in an environment vastly different from Earth. So let's talk about some key aspects of space medicine.
Yeah.
All right. So space medicine involves understanding how the human body reacts and adapts to microgravity environments of space. So microgravity is where people or objects appear to be weightless. Okay.
Float.
Yes, so you're floating. All right. So the main goal of space medicine is to ensure that astronauts remain healthy before, during, and after their space missions. Okay. So, and we'll talk about a little bit why and kind of connect the dots for everyone. So, Jules, hit me with the history.
Yeah. So how did this start?
Yeah. Julie is specialty in history. I do the health part of it. It's a perfect combo.
Yeah. Anyway, so space medicine is a blend of many medical specialties because living in space presents with very unique challenges that are obviously not faced on Earth. So here's a very simplified overview of the history because it could go really in depth, but we're not going to do that. So the beginning to space medicine. Space medicine started around the mid-20th century when countries like the US and the Soviet Union were eagerly pushing the boundaries of space exploration. You know, we had a pissing contest amongst each other back in those days of like who can make it there first. And so that's where it started. The very first question that needed answering was whether humans could even survive outside Earth's atmosphere. So with the launch of Yuri Gagarin into space in 1961, humans got its first real taste of space travel. And with it, the urgent need of a dedicated, specialized field of medicine that could support life in the harsh conditions that is space. So early challenges in development, initially doctors and scientists knew very little about how space flight could even affect the human body. They had concerns about how zero gravity would impact the body's normal functions, such as blood circulation and muscle strength. There were also worries about exposure to cosmic radiation and psychological effects of being confined in a small space far from Earth.
Not for me.
Exactly. Yeah. Definitely not for you.
Yeah.
And the thing is that like radiation, we have radiation every day, but that's why we have an atmosphere, and that's why we worry about things like climate change and whatever.
Yeah.
Because as the ozone layer opens, more radiation comes in, and that is bad. So when you leave our atmosphere, you are faced with just pure cosmic radiation, which is very bad. And so they were like, well, shit, we need to deal with that.
Well, shit.
Shit. Well, how do we deal with that? Quote unquote. Direct quote.
They were figuring it out, okay?
Yeah.
They were figuring it out.
Yeah. Direct quote from the scientist. Well, shit.
So funny.
Anyway, so one of the pioneers of space medicine was, listen,
I love that name.
we're going to try. I'm going to try this name out.
I'm going to name my next kid that.
Hubertus
Hubertus.
Strughold.
Nice.
Yeah. I feel like that's probably how he sounded like. Anyway, who first coined the term space medicine in 1948. He was instrumental in developing the pressure suit, so the astronaut suit, which is vital for protecting astronauts from the vacuum of space. Over in the Soviet Union, significant research was, so the bad guys, significant research was being conducted, particularly on how to maintain human health during long duration space flights. And then the advancement throughout the decades, as space missions became more ambitious, culminating to the moon landings of the late 1960s and 70s, space medicine had to evolve rapidly. The Apollo missions, for instance, brought new insights into how microgravity affects the body, leading to developments in how astronauts could exercise and maintain physical health while in space. And now we're going to be talking about
The effects of space on the human body. Okay. Body. Okay. So, space travel presents a unique set of challenges. So,
sorry, he's licking his ball sack right behind you and it's making noise.
nice. Stop it.
Stop. And you need a bath. You stink. Ugh.
Disgusting.
He's like, how dare you?
I know. He's like, I'm offended. So funny.
Sorry.
All right, so space travel presents a unique set of challenges for the human body, which has evolved to thrive under conditions of Earth's gravity. Okay, so obviously we are born on Earth. Our body are accustomed to living on Earth.
We evolved here.
Yeah, we evolved here. We are
Earthlings.
we are Earthlings that know how to do with gravity.
Earthlings.
So, adaptation and countermeasures. Astronauts undergo rigorous training, which is what I like. One of my favorite parts to see, like when astronauts train, is like all the stuff that they do to prepare. So
the way they even train in the pools and those
in the
really
pools
deep
and everything.
pools. Yeah, it's so cool.
So astronauts undergo like really intense training to prepare their bodies for these conditions. They follow strict exercise routines to combat muscle atrophy, so basically muscle loss and bone loss. Why? Because when you have density, you're working, right?
Yeah.
Like you are working to do all those things. Not density. When you have gravity, you are working your muscles to move and all of that.
It's working against gravity.
Exactly.
When you're moving.
So when you're floating, when you don't have gravity,
yeah,
it's different. Like you're not working any muscles there. Okay.
you're working less of them.
Less of them, exactly.
Yeah.
So they follow strict exercise routines to make sure that they combat muscle atrophy and bone loss. So nutrition is carefully managed to ensure they receive all the necessary nutrients to help mitigate some of the adverse effects of space on the body. Okay. So number one, microgravity effects. In space, the absence of gravity means that the astronauts don't use their muscles and bones in the same way as they do on Earth. I just have the visual of the movie with, oh my God, what's her face? I've been like forgetting like famous people's names.
I never remember them. So.
The lady from Miss Congeniality.
Sarah Bullock. Gravity.
Sandra Bullock. Yes. Gravity. Yes. That when she comes back on Earth, that she's like, can't really walk.
Well, after all that time.
All of that time, yeah. So, okay, so muscle atrophy. Muscles weaken and shrink because they aren't needed for activities like walking or lifting or anything like that. You can have bone loss as well. So without regular stress of gravity, bones lose their minerals and become less dense. So a condition similar to osteoporosis here. This increases the risk of fractures both in space and after returning to Earth, okay? So number two, radiation exposure. Space lacks Earth's protective atmosphere, which shields us from harmful cosmic radiation. In space, increased exposure to this radiation can lead to cancer risk, okay? The high levels of cosmic rays and can damage DNA, increasing the risk of developing cancer. Other health issues besides cancer is radiation can also affect your heart, potentially lead to other diseases,
neurological, like
skin changes,
name it.
It's terrible.
Radiation affects everything.
Yes. So cardiovascular changes, the heart and blood vessels also behave differently in space. So the heart becomes more spherical and less efficient, which might affect the ability to pump the blood. Fluid redistribution. So the heart shape. Okay.
It's gold. It's pretty.
I know, it's beautiful, actually. So the heart shape, it has this like little pointy,
like oval-ish.
Okay, so it literally sits like this. This is how your heart usually sits.
Jaw.
Yeah. Your left ventricle is like anterior, okay? And it's like kind of tilted a little bit. So basically, you don't have this shape anymore. It becomes more round, so more like a ball. Okay. So when it does that, then you're worried that it's going to be less efficient when it comes back to Earth. Okay. And it might affect the ability to pump the blood effectively. So you also have fluid redistribution. So what does that mean? Our bodies are like, you know, really, really high percentage of water and fluids. So between blood and water and all of that, you need to balance everything. So you do have some fluid redistribution. Okay. So fluids in the body can move towards the head, which causes facial swelling and can actually impact your heart, right? Yeah. So the immune system alterations. The immune system doesn't function the same way as it does on Earth, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
So a weakened immune response. Astronauts are more susceptible to infections as their body's defenses don't work as efficiently. You can also have an altered microbial environment. So the microorganisms that live on and inside humans can behave differently in space, potentially leading to increased disease risk. So crazy.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just so many things that
You don't think about.
Yeah.
So psychological and cognitive effects.
Big time.
Yeah. This is
gotta be
probably one of
huge.
the biggest.
Yeah.
So being isolated in a confined space from home can affect mental health.
Yeah. Far from home. Yeah.
Yeah. Stress and isolation. Psychological impact of being away from family, familiar environments can lead to stress and affect mental well-being. Cognitive function. There are concerns about potential impacts on cognitive abilities due to factors like disrupted sleep cycles and also stress. And it probably not so much from nutrition, but I can imagine that the change in your diet can
yeah.
also affect that too.
We'll talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can also have vision changes. So a notable issue has emerged in the recent years in changes in your vision, which some astronauts experience. The exact cause is still being studied, but it may be related to fluid shifts affecting the eyes and the optic nerve, which
Right.
totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Countermeasures and solutions. So to combat these challenges, the astronauts have to go to training to follow strict routines in space.
Routine is everything in space.
Yeah. So exercise. Astronauts use specialized equipment to perform daily exercises to help maintain muscle strength and bone density. Imagine that you need to work out every single day.
I mean, I'm sure.
Not every single day, but you have to stick to a routine.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's almost every single day because since you're
Yeah,
on
you're not allowed to be
microgravity.
a couch potato.
No, you can't. And I'm sure that you guys have seen it because it's everywhere. And like I've seen it in many, many times in social media. It's like these specialized treadmills.
Yeah.
And then they're all like hooked up to all these tubes and all that stuff. So you're not just
Yeah.
like on a treadmill. No, you're like strapped on because you're on microgravity. So
Yeah.
you're strapped onto it to make sure that you're on,
On
like sticking
it,
on the
yeah.
treadmill. And then you're like hooked on to all these hoses to monitor your breathing, to feed you oxygen,
Crazy.
all this bunch of stuff. It's insane. Like just looking at them working out in space is like,
So
what?
crazy.
Yeah.
Diet and medication. So carefully planned diets and specific medications help manage the risk of bone loss, muscle atrophy, and radiation exposure. Psychological support, regular communication with psychological support teams and activities designed to boost morale are crucial for mental health. So what are the short-term effects of space radiation exposure on astronauts?
Because
So
that's like one of the biggest problems
Yeah.
in space. You know, there's many problems, but radiation is a big one to avoid.
yeah. So short-term effects of space radiation exposure on astronauts can vary depending on the intensity and the type of radiation. So here's just a couple of examples.
Yeah.
So acute radiation syndrome. High doses of radiation, it can induce profound radiation sickness known as acute radiation syndrome. So this condition includes a range of symptoms such as nausea, vomiting, fatigue, anorexia.
Feeling horrific.
Yeah, just feeling terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah.
And imagine feeling like that in a confined space, like kind of the anxiety that you don't want to feel that anymore is crazy.
And another thing that people don't think of, you know how we have biological clocks here, we have circadian rhythms, like there's day and there's night.
Yeah.
In space, there's just night.
Night. Yep.
That's it.
So hematological changes, the exposure to space radiation, particularly during solar particle events, can lead to hematological changes. So these include alterations in the number and function of blood cells, potentially leading to anemia and immune system dysfunction. You can also have skin injury. So the skin can receive higher doses of radiation during space travel, especially from solar particle events, leading to the potential skin burns, erythema, so your skin gets really, really red, and then other dermal injuries. And some people have like radiation skin symptoms like here.
So
radiation
imagine
exposure, yeah.
Imagine over there in space. Oh, and we just had a major solar event happen right like last night from night that we're recording. We're recording now on the 11th. So just last night.
Really?
Have you seen it?
No.
Dude, just go into IG and everybody, like, because it was such a big solar flare event.
Oh, it was a solar flare. I had a feeling it was going to be a solar
It was
flare.
a huge one, but like more than it's been in many, many years I mean, people in New York were able to see auroras.
Oh, so that's what people are posting about.
That's what it is.
I have seen that people are posting northern lights, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, but clear in like New York and even parts of Florida, northern Florida, saw pinkish skies.
That's crazy.
Like, so if you're like in Jacksonville, Panhandle, all that, like beautiful photos I've been seeing on Instagram.
I know. Some people are posting.
Especially like people that are even more north, like the more north, the more they saw it.
Yeah.
But like, dude, New York?
I know.
I would have freaked out if I still lived in New York. I looked up and I'm like, that's a fucking aurora.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people post pictures, and I was like, what happened?
That's
I
it.
totally missed
it. Was last night, like a big thing. Of course, we're in Miami. We
don't get
totally
that,
left
yeah.
out of all of that. But yeah, most of the U.S. saw it.
Yeah, that's crazy, except for us.
Yeah, of course.
All right, so you can also have prodromal effects. So these are immediate symptoms of radiation exposure that can include the nausea, the vomiting, and the fatigue. These are particularly associated with exposure to high doses of radiation during solar particle events. You can also have neurological side effects. So there is a risk of acute neurological effects in radiation doses that are sufficiently high. It can include cognitive impairments, reduced motor function, and then also behavioral changes. These short-term effects are critical considerations for mission planning and health monitoring for astronauts during space missions, especially those that venture beyond low Earth orbit, where radiation levels are significantly higher.
Yeah.
All right.
So, long-term effects of space radiation and exposure to astronauts. So, space radiation exposure poses significant long-term health risks to astronauts, particularly during extended missions beyond low Earth orbit, or LEO. So some of these are, for instance, first one, increased cancer risk, as she had said, but long-term is that you're fine, you come back to Earth, you're okay, but maybe a few years later, you may have a risk of developing a certain cancer from all that radiation exposure, unfortunately. So it's obviously one of the more long-term effects. So it has significant energy to damage or break DNA molecules within the cells, so potentially leading to mutations, hence cancer. Cataracts. I hadn't even thought of this one until I saw it. I was like, oh shit, yeah. So exposure to space radiation can also lead to development of cataracts, which is a cataracts. Cataracts, which is clouding of the lens in the eye that affects your vision. So this condition has been identified as a significant risk for astronauts due to radiation exposure. Cardiovascular risk, as she has mentioned, there's evidence suggesting that space radiation may increase the risk of cardiovascular disease. Studies have shown that astronauts who have traveled in space exhibit higher incidence of cardiovascular disease, potentially due to radiation exposure during their missions. Central nervous system effects. So high levels of radiation exposure can lead to detrimental effects on the central nervous system, which can include cognitive decline, reduced motor function, and even behavioral changes. And this is particularly concerning for missions to Mars or other deep space destinations, where exposure to high energy cosmic rays and solar radiation is more significant. Because again, the further you get away from Earth, the more exposure you have to these cosmic rays. Because Earth's gravity with its atmosphere like extends beyond. So that's why the further you get, the further away you get from that benefit. Degenerative tissue effects. How can I explain like fucking radiation and I can't say degenerative. Right? Tissue effects. Besides cancer and cardiovascular issues, space radiation can also cause degenerative tissue effects, which might include damage to other body systems such as muscular skeletal system. And then of course genetic mutations, because that's going to happen with radiation, and it may not only increase the risk of cancer but also potentially affect future generations if mutations occur in reproductive cells. Really crazy stuff. Anyway, so these long-term effects are a major concern for space agencies planning on long-duration missions to Moon, Mars, and beyond, as a cumulative exposure to high levels of cosmic radiation significantly increases these health risks. So efforts to mitigate these risks by improving spacecraft, shielding, the suits, and even using medications to protect against radiation damages being observed. So yeah, what are the symptoms?
All right, so what are the symptoms of radiation sickness? All right, so we talked a little bit about the nausea and the vomiting. Okay, so these are the most common symptoms of radiation sickness. They can start within an hour of exposure, and then often it's the initial indicator of a severe radiation exposure. Diarrhea, the symptoms along with nausea and vomiting can also occur just because it's gastrointestinal effects. So you can also have that as a symptom. Headache and fatigue is a big one as well. These symptoms are also common and can accompany that nausea. Fever, I didn't know this one. So fever is a part of a systemic response to radiation exposure. So astronauts can also have a fever. That's so scary. Can you imagine you start having fever as an astronaut? I'd start freaking out. Yeah, freaking out. I'd be like, bring me back to Earth. Bring me back to Earth. I need Earth now. No,
Right now.
right now. Okay.
Put me on the emergency pod.
Yeah, where is it? Just send me back to Earth. All right, so dizziness and disorientation. I think that this is more like, when you start having advanced exposure.
Yeah.
So these symptoms can particularly be a sign of the central nervous system being affected. So the skin reddening, the swelling, and the burns, radiation can cause immediate damage to the skin, leading to these symptoms. And then sometimes they can even lead to ulcerations. Hair loss. Exposure to high doses of radiation can result in hair loss, which may occur as the skin and follicles are also damaged. Bloody vomit and stool. So remember, you have all your mucosa that's very sensitive, right? So when you're having these gastrointestinal symptoms, you're going to have damage to those mucosa.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have bloody vomiting and bloody stools. Low blood pressure and infections, like we kind of mentioned with the fevers. So as the immune system is compromised, you can be at increased susceptibility to developing a severe infection. And then when you have a severe infection, you have an inflammatory response, which then lowers your blood pressure. So changes in blood cell counts, radiation can lead to a sharp drop in your white blood cells. So you have your bone marrow, and your bone marrow is going to make all of these cells. So all of your infection cells, all of your cells that carry your anemia, your hemoglobin, your platelets, like all those things, right?
Yeah.
So when you have radiation, you can have a sharp decrease in all these cell lines just because of the radiation exposure. And then so when you have a sharp drop in, let's say, your infectious cells, then you are at less, you can fight infections less, basically.
That's why their immune system
is down.
compromised.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
And then you can have anemia because the cells carrying your hemoglobin your red blood cells, those are going to be the ones that are going to be carrying your hemoglobin and your iron that is going to be affected. Then you can have your platelets. So when you have low platelets, then you have more increased bleeding risks. So these symptoms can appear within minutes to days. It depends on the type of exposure, and it depends on how long your exposure is lasting. So is it a short exposure? Is it several days of an exposure? So it's often followed by a symptom-free period before potentially more symptoms emerge that the exposure was significant.
Yeah.
That's terrible when you think you're like out of it and you're
That's
not.
that's the worst part of these type of radiations, is especially because of the cancer. Like it could creep up on you, show up on you, and any time later.
Yeah.
Once you're back on Earth and whatnot. So how is radiation sickness treated in astronauts? Because clearly it's a big concern. So the acute radiation sickness, like she had said, it can be very serious. So initial assessment and monitoring for this. The first step in treating radiation sickness in astronauts involves careful monitoring and assessment. So medical teams evaluate the severity of the exposure based on symptoms like she had said, nausea, vomiting, and then they help determine the right treatment approach. So managing the symptoms, medications for nausea and vomiting are used, fluid and electrolytes are given, because obviously if you're vomiting and you have diarrhea, you may have then dehydration.
Yes.
So then obviously pain management as well, because like she had mentioned, you could have burns and all those sorts of things. So that's painful.
Just
like
bloody vomiting, bloody stool. I'm sure that everything hurts.
Everything has to hurt. So, some pain management is definitely going to be seeked out at that moment. And then addressing infections, because your immune system is somewhat compromised in space, especially if you are encountering high levels of radiation. So astronauts may receive antibiotics or antiviral medications as preventative measure to treat any occurring infections. Blood products. So if radiation exposure has led to severe damage to blood cells, like blood cell count and all that, treatment might include transfusions of red blood cells or platelets. This helps counteract the effects of radiation on the bone marrow where the blood cells are produced. And then long-term monitoring after the initial treatment. Long-term monitoring this includes regular checks of your blood cell counts, all those levels, overall health to watch for the delayed effects like we had literally just mentioned right now, which is just scary, you know? So such as changes in the bone marrow function or the development of new issues and just keeping an eye out that you're not going to develop a cancer. And then, of course, psychological support, very important, okay? Dealing with radiation sickness can be stressful, very stressful experience, especially in the isolated and confined environment of space. So psychological support and counseling are provided to help astronauts cope with the mental and emotional challenges of this condition. And then there are advanced therapies. So in more severe cases where there is significant damage to the bone marrow or other critical tissues, more advanced treatments like stem cell transplantations might even be considered. But however, such treatments would typically require a trip back to Earth as they involve more complex medical procedures that are just not feasible in space, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah.
All right. So what are some of the measures taken by NASA to reduce the risk of radiation exposure? NASA has developed several strategies to protect the astronauts from the invisible yet significant threat of space radiation, which becomes a major concern when they venture out on their own. So here's a very simplified version of it. So shielding. One of the primary ways that NASA tries to reduce radiation exposure is through shielding. So just like wearing a thick coat can protect you from the cold, the spacecraft and the space suits are built with special materials that can absorb and deflect harmful radiation particles. So NASA is exploring various materials, including water and certain plastics that can particularly be good at stopping radiation. These materials can be integrated into the walls of the spacecraft and habitats on other planets, okay? Mission planning is a big one. You got to plan all these things out, right? So NASA carefully plans out missions to minimize the time astronauts spend in high radiation areas. This includes choosing paths through the space that reduce exposure to radiation, like hotspots, and timing of missions to avoid periods of intense solar activity, kind of like what we were mentioning before.
Yeah.
When the sun releases huge bursts of radiation, that's basically what they're trying to avoid with their timing. Safe havens, okay, super important. So inside spacecrafts, NASA designed specific areas that have extra shielding where astronauts can take shelter during solar storms, which are sudden outbursts of intense radiation from the sun.
Which they probably did last night. Incredibly so.
So
thinking
scary.
about that. They had to because it was massive. Like, it's a big one.
These safe havens are strategically placed to offer the best protection with materials available on the spacecraft. So radiation monitoring. Astronauts wear devices that constantly monitor radiation levels, similar to a badge. This helps NASA keep track of each astronaut's exposure over time. The Space Radiation Analysis Group and NASA's Johnson Space Center plays a crucial role in monitoring and analyzing radiation data to ensure astronaut safety. All right. Medical countermeasures?
Yeah. So NASA is researching on medications and dietary supplements that could help protect the body from radiation damage or help it recover more quickly if astronauts are exposed. And this includes antioxidants, which we are very, very aware that it's very good for like radiation and for anti-cancers and whatnot, which can protect cells from the damage and other compounds that might help repair damaged DNA. So personalized protection. Researchers are studying how individual susceptibility to radiation might vary and how this knowledge can be used to tailor personal protection plans for each astronaut. This could involve selecting astronauts less sensitive to radiation or customizing countermeasures based on an individual's specific needs. And then we have advanced technologies. So NASA is also exploring innovative technologies such as high temperature superconducting magnets to create active shielding that could deflect charged particles of space radiation away from the spacecraft, much like Earth's magnetic field protects us. It's so freaking cool. Anyway, I'm nerding out here. Anyway, so how do astronauts maintain their physical and mental health in space? Maintaining the physical and mental health of astronauts during space missions is crucial due to the unique and challenging environment of space. So a simplified explanation of how astronauts can stay healthy and suitable during these missions. Physical health, as she had previously mentioned a little bit. Gotta exercise, all right? So they're wearing all the things that I had said earlier. Just check it out. You'll see it. Just put astronaut exercising. It'll come out immediately. It's really neat. In space, I'll actually post it. I'll post it on IG along with the cover of this. Anyway, so in space, the lack of gravity means that astronauts don't use their muscles and bones in the same way as we do here on Earth. So to combat that muscle weakening and bone loss, astronauts follow a strict exercise regimen. They use specialized designed equipment to ensure that they get the necessary workout. So this includes a treadmill with harnesses, like I had said, like those little, to keep you on it, and to keep them grounded. A stationary bicycle without a seat. So you're just... and a resistance exercise device that simulates weightlifting, because you need to stop that muscle atrophy. Astronauts typically spend about 2 hours each day exercising to maintain their strength and bone density. Crazy.
A lot of exercise every day.
Yeah. How about nutrition?
Yeah. So eating right is just as important. We had kind of mentioned it, like that they need to get all their minerals, vitamins, and everything. So space food has come a long way, with astronauts now enjoying a variety of meals that include fresh fruit, veggies, and even specially prepared dishes to ensure they receive all necessary nutrients.
Can you imagine being the chef?
I know.
To concoct this?
Concoct this, yeah. Meals are carefully planned to provide the right balance of calories, vitamins, and minerals needed to sustain their energy levels. I just wonder, like, is it still like that paste?
Well, some of it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did see that. But I could just imagine, like, the chef or nutritionist or both, whatever the case is in this situation.
Doing this, yeah.
Planning this out.
Yeah.
Like, you have to have, it has to be a nutritionist. These are the amount of nutrients, each need, whatever, for each day or whatever. But then you also need, like, kind of the expertise of a chef to, like, know how to make it palatable.
Palatable, yeah.
Because these are missions of months. So you can't feed these guys, like, the same thing every day.
Every day, yeah.
Like, mentally, that's going to mess you up, too.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm out.
That's crazy.
I'm out. So I don't know.
It's crazy.
The more you think about it, the more you're like, how does that work? Anyway.
And then a big one is going to be mental health. So routine and communication, maintaining your mental health in space involves regular communication with family and friends, as well as psychologists and other support staff. Astronauts have scheduled calls and video chats to stay connected with their loved ones and to combat the feelings of isolation. So sleep is going to be really important for them too. Rest is critical, but sleeping in space can be actually pretty challenging due to the microgravity. So astronauts sleep in small individual sleep pods where they attach themselves to so that they don't float around. Can you imagine you're sleeping and you detach and you're just like, oh, where am I? I'm in the kitchen.
I'll include a photo of that too, because
They also use tools like sleep masks and earplugs to block out noise and light, helping them stick to a regular sleep schedule. Oh, God, I'd be like claustrophobic just sleeping in a sleep pod.
Yeah.
So recreation. Astronauts have personal time in their schedules and in their days during which they can engage in activities such like reading, listening to music, watching movies. This downtime is essential for mental well-being as well, providing astronauts with a chance to relax and enjoy some leisure activities just like they would if they were here on Earth.
Yep.
So social interactions, despite small numbers of people on space missions, social interactions are crucial. So astronauts spend time together during meals and other activities, which help build a supportive community. They celebrate special occasions that can participate in group activities, which are important for mental health and team dynamics. So now we're going to talk about a little bit of what is it exactly that they eat.
Yeah,
we're going to dive down into the nutrition of it.
Dive down into it a little bit more because, I mean, it's something more relatable to us because everything they do is so bonkers up there. So, like, we all have to eat. What do they eat?
What do they eat? Yeah. So astronauts eat a variety of foods in space, much like we eat on Earth, but with a little bit of a twist to accommodate the unique environment that they're in. So this is going to be a simplified version of it.
Yeah.
So the basics, astronauts eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner and snacks just like we do on Earth. Their menu includes 100 items ranging from fruits, veggies, pre-prepared, over 100 meals, including fruits, veggies, pre-prepared meals, and desserts.
Yeah.
You always got to have desserts. They even have condiments like ketchup and mustard to add flavors. The food needs to be nutritious to help maintain their health in space where conditions like microgravity can affect their bodies differently from Earth. Yeah. Eating in space comes with its own set of challenges. Without gravity, food and drinks won't stay on a plate or in a cup. Instead, they could float away and make a mess or even damage spacecraft. Okay. So, to solve this, space food is packaged in ways that can prevent it from floating away. So, drinks come in special pouches and straws, and food is often contained in sealed packages.
That answers your question.
Yeah. So, it's all just toddler pouches.
Pretty much.
All right, so types of space food. Dehydrated foods. Okay, so that's actually here like space cheese or something. Many foods are freeze dried and need to have water added back to them before eating. This method keeps the food safe to eat for longer periods and reduce its weight, which is crucial for space travel.
Yeah.
Imagine, like, you need to pack for a long mission, and
But everything is
But
like
everything
very,
is-
as minimal weight.
minimal weight, exactly.
Yeah.
So thermostabilized foods, these are heat treated to kill bacteria and seal in freshness, similar to the canned foods, but in pouches. So this process allows for a variety of meals from meatloaf to coconut cream pie. I hate meatloaf. I'd be like, chef, what the fuck is this? Anyway,
Take that pouch back.
scored it at the window.
No,
I would never.
Ugh, God, no.
Can you imagine it like short circuits something?
Right.
Like my radiation safety room or something.
My God.
I'd freaking die. All because of the meatloaf.
I've just seen them like eating noodles or something.
Yeah.
And then like they make fun of it. They're making a video of it. But then you just see the noodle like, and they're like,
Yeah. So fresh foods. Whenever possible, astronauts enjoy fresh fruit and vegetables, which are sent on the resupply missions. These items provide a welcome change for processed foods and help boost morale. So imagine you're
Instacart
here.
in space.
Yeah, but you're here eating this puree for
Yeah.
a whole entire month, and
Yeah.
then someone gives you a strawberry. You're gonna be like, "Oh my god!"
Best strawberry
Yeah,
ever.
exactly. Like
Yeah.
texture, yay!
Exactly.
Snacks, just like Earth, astronauts enjoy their snacks like nuts, granola bars, and even some candy. So these items don't require special preparation, but can be eaten directly from their packages.
Yeah.
So at least they have some texture.
Yeah.
Can you imagine coming back?
Oh my
like,
God.
And you're chewing, you're like, I'm really tired.
Yeah, probably.
chewing.
You're
Yeah.
probably right. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
So, some special considerations when it comes to eating in space. So, you're going to have taste changes. So, in space, astronauts may experience changes in their sense of taste because fluids in their body distributes differently in microgravity. So, this in turn makes their taste buds a little less sensitive. As a result, they often prefer stronger flavors like spicy foods. Go figure that.
Yummy.
I can't do it.
Yum.
Well, yeah, you and Mario are all about that.
Yum,
you
yum,
would
yum.
need like ghost pepper at that point.
I don't ghost. I'm not
Well,
that
up there, probably, yeah. Because you
Probably, yeah.
need like stronger.
stronger stuff. Yeah, maybe.
I'll probably be able to finally do a jalapeno up there.
You can't do a jalapeno.
I can't.
Wow.
I'm a wuss with heat. Anyway.
Yummy, yummy.
Nutrition. So space food is carefully planned to ensure that astronauts get the right balance of nutrients to stay healthy. So of course, this includes like taking into account calories, vitamins, minerals, all of those things. Of course, we take into account cultural and personal preferences. So space agencies try to accommodate the cultural and personal food preferences of astronauts. So this could include special dishes for astronauts from different countries or allowing them to bring some of their favorite foods.
Yum. What would you bring?
Vienna sausage. I'm kidding. No, I'm
Did
kidding.
you see my face of confusion?
I'm
I was like,
kidding. I just thought of the most Cuban, like,
yeah, Vienna
You know,
sausage. Yeah, for sure.
Vienna sausage.
I don't know
No.
what I would bring.
Something that's non-perishable. That's a problem.
Oh God.
Okay,
Chicharrón.
there you go.
Oh my God, yummy.
There you go. Yeah, I have no idea.
Spoken like a true Cuban, chicharrón.
I would have to get back to you on that. I cannot think of maybe a chocolate chip cookie.
Oh, but we're talking about cultural foods.
Culture. Oh, I'm not very cultural. Like with my culture. You know me. I'm a really weird Cuban.
A croqueta? But that's not.
It's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a thing. Like something Cuban that I like that I could, just.
Mariquitas?
Okay, there we go. Mariquitas. Okay, I could do that. All right. So, future space food. As space missions become longer and aim to reach farther destinations like Mars, providing tasty and nutritious food becomes an even more critical and bigger problem. So researchers are exploring new ways to produce food in space, such as growing vegetables on spacecraft. So yeah, it's really cool, like what they're able to do, like with hydroponics and
Yeah.
all that stuff.
Yeah.
This not only provides fresh food, but could also make long duration space travel more sustainable. Yeah, because you're not going to be able to like travel to and from Mars on that Instacart space
Yeah,
mission.
no problem. Not gonna do that.
Yeah. So, all right.
All right. So, how does space medicine differ from traditional medicine? So, space medicine is a specialized field of medicine that focus on the health of the astronauts living in space or working there. So, unlike traditional medicine on Earth, space medicine addresses the unique challenges, like how we kind of discussed with the microgravity. Okay. So, microgravity, again, like we had said before, we don't have that weight anymore. So, our body just functions differently.
Yeah.
Space medicine focuses mainly on the microgravity. Okay. So, that muscle atrophy, the bone density,
Those things we mentioned.
the radiation exposure, the isolation and confinement, and then obviously that distance from Earth. So, immediate access to medical facilities, you don't have that anymore.
Yeah.
So, they want to make sure that you have everything and that honestly, that the astronauts can be self sustainable because you don't have a doctor there. So, they kind of have to be their own thing.
Well, one of them is typically like
Well, yeah, like
yeah, like
a
trained for
specialist,
that, like a
exactly.
medic or
yeah,
something
yeah.
to that effect.
But still,
But
like
no,
what happens
yeah.
to that person is
100%.
the
That-
one hurt.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say.
So
yeah.
they do have to plan for that too. So this includes training the astronauts in first aid and emergency procedures, unlike in Earth where hospitals and doctors are more accessible.
Yep.
And then obviously adaptation to medical technology. So many medical tools and technologies must be adapted for their use in space. For instance, in microgravity, liquids behave differently. So devices like syringes and diagnostics equipment and ultrasound machines need modifications enabled to work. So everything is different.
Yeah. You have to account for microgravity.
Yeah. And can you imagine like you have an appendicitis?
You can't even open a body really. Like how do you open a body? The fluid will just float.
I'm sure there has to be some sort of like training for that.
100%.
For like a surgery.
There has to be. It is probably like the orthoscopic.
Yeah.
It's the only way that I could figure because if you open like a large mass, then you're gonna have blood flowing out,
Yeah.
floating, literally.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about the qualifications that you need in order to have a career in space medicine. So, in order for you to have a career in space medicine, it just varies depending on the role that you're in.
Yep.
But generally, it includes a combination of medical education, specialized training, and experience in aerospace medicine. So, here are a few of the qualifications. So, a medical degree and residency. Obviously, that's like baseline for everything. So, you do have to have some specialization in emergency medicine, maybe some general surgery, orthopedic surgery. Similar fields are often required. So, specialized training in aerospace medicine. So, formal courses and diplomas. Many programs require completion of a specialized course in aerospace medicine. So, for instance, a diploma in aviation medicine, okay, then you need to have a diploma in aerospace medicine. So, you can have that. Aerospace medicine at King's College London are common qualifications.
Badass.
Yeah. Fellowships and clerkships. I would figure that you need to do a fellowship.
Yeah.
So fellowships in space medicine, such as the one offered by UCLA, include graduate level engineering and bioastronautics, training, and clinical rotations focused on space related applications. So NASA's aerospace medicine clerkship is another example, which is available to medical students and residents focusing in space medicine topics and international space station operations.
Can you imagine you did all the way through residency and then you continue doing all this?
Yeah, you just be a specialist.
But how
aerospace.
intense is that?
Yeah, no, that's crazy. I mean, but there's people that do like fellowships for like even longer, like 7 years.
Oh, no, I
you
know. I know.
So if you have an interest, like by all means, go for it, man.
Hell yeah.
I bet you got paid bucks because it's such a crazy specialization.
Super niche.
Yeah. So the certification. So you have to have a board certification. So the American Board of Preventive Medicine, offers a board certification in aerospace medicine. This requires the completion of an ACGME. ACGME is basically like our graduate medical education. So you need to have an ACGME accredited residency in aerospace medicine.
In aerospace medicine.
In aerospace medicine, specifically that.
Yeah.
So, aeronautical ratings. For roles like aerospace medicine specialists, flight surgeons in the U.S. Air Force, an aeronautical rating of flight surgeon, senior flight surgeon, and chief flight surgeon is required. I think you also have to have a little bit of like military, to be honest.
Badass.
Yeah.
Like anybody that talks to me and says, "Oh, I'm all these things," I'd be like,
Oh, I'd be like, oh, this is intense.
yeah, like
I'm a pediatrician.
it's just look at all these things.
Yeah,
Look
I
at
know.
all the things. I'm
I
like,
need to have like flight chief surgeon and
when
like,
I
all
was
these
writing
things.
all this, I'm like, oh my
Who has
god,
this?
like who, like oh my god. And I do mention who. Stay tuned.
So experience and skills, you need to have clinical experience. So experience in
Yeah.
managing patients in both outpatient and inpatient settings. This includes specific training in medical environments such as Mars, surface analogs, and Arctic environments. Sure. Just add it to the resume.
How could you be qualified for all these
I
things?
don't know, man. Involvement in a research-related aerospace medicine and roles in medical education are highly valued. Of course, because you're going to have to teach a lot, probably. So
And then
they
where do
want to
you
make
find
sure
the
you have
time?
that. Yeah, exactly.
Where do you find the time to be this qualified?
Poster presentations, conferences, aerospace medicine societies. Just keep going, keep going.
How do you find the time?
And then additional
No, we don't stop.
qualifications.
We don't
Yeah,
stop.
we're not stopping here. So licenses and permits. Eligibility to obtain a medical license in relevant state or country is necessary. So California medical license is required for UCLA fellowship, obviously.
Yeah.
You need to apply for your licenses. So then physical and psychological fitness. Given the unique challenges in space environment, physical and psychological fitness is also a key consideration.
You're just a specimen of a human being.
Yeah.
In
And then
every shape or form, physical and mental, like
Yeah.
specimen of a human being.
so this ensures that you are qualified to be a professional in space medicine and equipped to handle any situation. I mean, but to be honest, like
No, you have to.
you have to.
be put in
You-
a freaking rocket and be shot out there. Like you have to be a specimen of a human. You have to.
Yeah.
Like,
You need to know the ins and outs of everything.
yeah,
Because if someone asks you a question, you better got an answer.
yeah, it's life or death out there.
Yep,
And
exactly.
it's very, very delicate.
Yep.
Really, really delicate. Anyway, so what are some of the latest developments in space medicine? So this is obviously a field that focuses on keeping astronauts healthy during their missions in space. And it's a bit like regular medicine, but with extra challenges for obvious reasons. So some of the latest developments that I wanted to go ahead and touch upon is like training for health emergencies in space.
Yeah.
So imagine you're far away from Earth, on the moon or even Mars, whatever, pick it. And then someone gets sick. You can't just call an ambulance, okay? Or call your doctor or whatever the case may be. So scientists are working on new ways to handle these emergencies, like ultrasound technology to treat conditions that might happen in space, such as urinary problems or appendicitis.
Yep.
They're even practicing.
I wonder if they can have like machines, like robots that you can control from down on Earth
Maybe.
and do the surgery up in space.
Maybe.
How cool would that be?
That would be really neat.
You could just hire me.
Putting it out there.
I'm so smart. I'm just
So they're even practicing these techniques in simulated space missions on Earth to make sure they're ready for the real thing.
Yeah.
So, oh yeah, and there's just Brownie. I just see legs behind you. Like, just
Aw. It's a little pause.
it's passed out.
Yeah.
So NASA's medical breakthroughs, it's not all about rockets and rovers. It's a lot more than that. NASA has actually contributed to medicine here on Earth. For example, technology developed for space missions has led to improvements in MRI machines. Devices that, if you haven't heard our other previous episodes where we've talked about MRIs, like an EMF, I think it was an EMF,
Yeah.
right?
It just came out not that long ago.
Exactly. So it's a kind of way for you to see inside the body without actually having to open up anything. And you can see tissues, very, very just detailed imaging inside the body. NASA has also played a part in developing things like ear thermometers, insulin pumps for diabetes, and even technology that helps in brain surgery. It's pretty cool to think that exploring space can help people stay healthy on Earth. Yeah. So space tech spin-offs for Earth medicine. Sometimes the technology NASA creates for space ends up being even more useful here on Earth, like kind of like how we mentioned earlier. So for instance, NASA's work on spacesuits and satellite batteries helped develop a wireless camera that doctors can use during surgery. There are also new ways to diagnose illnesses inspired by space exploration that can help detect diseases like the coronavirus, hepatitis, and even cancer. Even some types of toothpaste have roots in NASA's research. Go figure that.
I know, seriously.
So discoveries that could help astronauts in Mars. Space medicine is also making discoveries that could one day help astronauts live in Mars. For example, researchers found that being in space changes how many red blood cells you have, as she had really gone more into depth in. And this, of course, can affect your energy and your strength when you land on a planet with gravity. So understanding this could help keep astronauts healthy on long missions. Plus, there are exciting missions planned that will bring more health experiments to the International Space Station that's currently out there. And it's studying everything from bone density to how proteins related to diseases behave in microgravity. These studies not only help future space explorers, but could also lead to medical advancements for us here on Earth. So some more very recent, fascinating new breakthroughs in fields in space medicine. So some AI-driven research for astronaut health. AI is going to just
Take over.
take over everything. So imagine a tiny satellite called CubeSat, okay, floating in space carrying tissue samples. This is what Vector Space Biosciences is doing. They send these sats into space to study how tissues change in microgravity and cosmic radiation. Back on Earth, they use AI to analyze this data. This helps them understand how space affects human health and find ways to counteract those effects. So this helps them understand how space affects human health and find ways to counteract those effects. It's like having super smart computer assistants that help scientists make discoveries faster than before. So imagine that, like you're just sending like little tissue samples
I know.
out to space.
Out to space. Yep.
See what happens, you know? All right, so then there's 3D biofabrication of heart tissue. We're back to
The heart.
the heart. So scientists have managed to create heart tissues that act like real hearts using special 3D printing techniques. They mix 3 types of cells in a gel and print them into a waffle-like structure. This could help study heart disease in space by seeing how heart tissues behave in microgravity. It's a bit like baking a very complex cake, where the recipe helps us understand how to keep astronauts healthy on long space missions.
All right, so NASA's medical innovations. So NASA has contributed to many medical breakthroughs, such as improving the MRI machines, like we had already mentioned, but also developing ear thermometers and insulin pumps as well.
I never knew that they
I
helped
know,
to
me
do
neither.
that.
So these advancements come from technology originally designed in space missions, but have found important use back on Earth. It's like when you invent a new tool to fix something in your house, but then you realize it can also fix a lot of other things.
Yeah.
So fighting cancer with space research. The International Space Station is helping in the fight against cancer. So scientists are using the unique conditions in space to study cancer cells and test new treatments. For example, they're looking at how blood vessel cells, which tumors need to grow, behave in space. This could lead to safer and more effective cancer treatments. It's as if space provides a special lab that gives us new ways to kind of tackle diseases and even see how things even like come about.
Yeah.
Okay. Monitoring muscle health in space. So a new handheld device allows astronauts to monitor their muscle health during missions. So this is important because muscles can weaken during the lower gravity, like we had explained. But by understanding which muscles are most affected, scientists can help develop better exercises and health plans for astronauts. It's like having a fitness tracker that helps you keep in shape, but for space. So space medicine discoveries for Moon and Mars missions. I love like all these things about Mars. I
Yeah.
just feel like it's really going to come into the future.
Yeah,
real
that's
soon.
why they're actively working on it.
I think they were like actively recruiting people to potentially be like
Yep.
first to live on Mars.
Yep. I mean, I think they're currently right now training for that. Like they're
Crazy.
isolated and
Yeah.
they live like simulating microgravity right now.
So crazy.
Yeah.
So recent findings suggest that astronauts might experience fewer red blood cells, like we had mentioned, which could affect their energy and strength when they land on new planets. So understanding this could help improve the prevention and treatment during the long duration of space travels. It's like figuring out how to stay healthy and strong for a marathon, but the marathon is on the moon and Mars.
Exactly.
So these breakthroughs in space medicine are not just about keeping astronauts healthy. It's just knowing what to expect, making you're trying to be proactive about things. And basically all those advancements can really benefit all of us at the end because we can use some of those things back on Earth.
Exactly.
Okay. Just had to do that. So what's the future in space medicine? So as we plan longer missions, such as trips to Mars, space medicine will become even more critical. Researchers are working on better ways to provide medical care in space, including the development of technologies that can help diagnose and treat astronauts without direct intervention from doctors on Earth. So a special mention, we're going to just talk about people that have really big names in this world.
It's just one person.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, this one person. We're gonna just mention this one person because he's like extraordinary in the amount of things that he's qualified and things that he has done and currently doing. So take it away.
All right.
It's mind blowing.
So Johnny Kim is a remarkable individual born in Los Angeles in 1984 to a first-generation Korean American parents. Born in Los Angeles in 19. Okay. Oh, okay.
Okay.
So Kim faced a challenging childhood marked by an abusive father. So despite his early hardships, he demonstrated an incredible capacity for resilience and achievements. So after graduating from high school, Kim enlisted in the U.S. Navy, where he completed the grueling training to become a Navy SEAL. All right, that's already great there.
Exactly.
And then during his time in the military, Kim actively sought out to various training programs, becoming skilled as a parachutist, scuba diver, combat diver, Renaissance scout, and a sniper.
Reconnaissance scout.
Oh, what? Renaissance. Yeah, I don't know why I said that.
Reconnaissance.
Okay, so a parachutist, scuba diver, combat diver, reconnaissance scout, and a sniper. What the fuck is a reconnaissance scout? I don't even know.
Like recon missions.
Oh, recon missions. Okay,
Yeah.
wow, what a complicated name. Okay,
Yeah.
so he served 2 hours.
No, it's not too.
I can't read. So he served 2 tours in Iraq during the Iraq War, taking on multiple roles such as a medic, a sniper, navigator, and point man in over 100 combat missions. So he was recognized for his bravery and leadership, and with several commendations, including a Silver Star and a Bronze Star with combat, quote unquote, V. So seeking to continue his education because, it wasn't enough for him.
No.
He served in, serve in a new capacity. Kim pursued his higher education, earning a degree from mathematics from the University of San Diego, and later a doctor of medicine from Harvard Medical School. Amazing schools. So his medical career included a residency in emergency medicine where he further honed his skills honed? I thought it was owned.
Honed.
All right. So where he further honed his skills in critical care. So Kim's journey took another extraordinary turn when he was selected by NASA in 2017 to join the astronaut corps. His selection was a testament to his diverse skills and experiences from combat and medicine to advanced mathematics and leadership. As a NASA astronaut, Kim has undergone extensive training and prep for future space missions, including potential missions to the moon and part of NASA's Artemis program. All right, guys. The guy's amazing. Talk about qualified.
Navy SEAL.
Yeah, I know. No, becoming a Navy SEAL is ridiculous.
All the way to...
No, all his special,
Yeah, and just Navy SEAL to
and
Harvard
then
grad.
University of San Diego is not an easy school to get into. Then he got into Harvard Medical School. And then he did emergency medicine, then did critical care because that's a fellowship in emergency medicine. And then he went to NASA and then did all his astronaut stuff. I mean, guy.
I had to mention him because when I saw him on
If we can interview you one day,
oh my God. Yeah.
it would be an honor.
Yeah, honestly, it would be an insane honor
Yeah.
because you're one of the most accomplished human beings I've ever heard of.
Yeah.
It's insane. It's insane.
Crazy.
But yeah, hats off to you. You're a walking, talking brain and brave human.
Yeah.
Honestly, thank you for your service and for everything, honestly. So anyway, thank you for tuning in. And, thank you, Patreons. You guys are the MVPs, and we will catch you on the next one.
Bye.
Like, comment, review us on all streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, etc.
Check us out on Instagram and TikTok at Funny Medicine Podcast. Our Gmail is at funnymedicine305@gmail.com. And remember, we are not diagnosing you.
Definitely not, just funny stuff.
See you later, guys.